All right, good morning, everybody. Good morning. There we go. Push that way. So before we jump into our next unit this week, we're going to go backwards just for a second to career prep. Last week, you all heard in person from two different people from the Center for Career Coaching. Wonderful presentations, very informative. I appreciate them coming. And we mentioned to you that the way they're set up, they have coaches who are assigned to different schools, right? So Kate Vogel is assigned to the business school, and I wanted her to come today so that y'all could meet her in person, let her share anything she wants to share with you, let y'all ask any questions that you may have for her. So y'all help me welcome Kate Vogel. Thank you, Kate.
Hi. All right, so some of you I already know. I hope spring semester is going good. But I'm Kate Vogel. I'm a career success coach over here at the Center for Career Coaching, and we just changed our name in January. And our goal, is to help you prepare for your career and find something meaningful that's also going to make you financially stable. A little bit about me is I'm from Douglasville, Georgia originally. I joined the Army when I was 17. I served in the Army until 2015. I was medically discharged, so I transitioned out of service much earlier than I thought I would. And at that point in time, I had to pivot and figure out what I was going to do. My undergraduate degree was in German foreign languages and literatures. You can tell that I'm using that a lot in my day-to-day work, right? Not really. But I am passionate about it. I have children that are all, if they're not bilingual, they're trilingual at this point, and have learned a lot about language and culture as a result of my undergrad. My master's I had gotten from Columbus State in organizational leadership in 2012 to 2013. So I was here in Turner College, so I'm happy to be back on campus. I came back April 1st. It was not a April Fool's Day joke. So I've been here almost a year, and it's exciting to be back on the university campus and be able to pour back into a university that I think really helped me understand the transition from the military to the civilian sector, the importance of networking, and the importance of building community, which is big here in Columbus, right? And to also learn about what's important to community. So while you're at Columbus State University, this is a college that was really built by this community. This community said that they wanted a college here. And this college really espouses the community's top values of servant leadership, genuineness, innovation, cultivating community and relationships. Those are things that we know about Columbus State University, but they're really things about the greater Columbus area. And so I bring that up because it's, what do you want to share with the students? I want you to think about the classes you're in right now and which classes you really enjoy and which classes you kind of really, And it could be, material based, but part of the experience also has to do with who sits to your left and your right. And it also has to do with the values of your instructor. You have an instructor that's making and carving out class time to really help you invest in yourselves and learn about a resource that can help you while you're here, but also after you graduate. So if you think about the culture of every classroom you go into, there are some places where you would spend more hours in that classroom. Maybe it's the material that's engaging, the work, right? Maybe it's the people that draw you back there, and getting to do an assignment or see a friend that you only see, the Monday, Wednesday class. Maybe it's the instructor and how the instructor makes you feel valued, appreciated, and like your contributions matter, right? But when you think about your career in the future, those are the things you should look for too, right? Who wants to go to a job where it's like, okay, you're here, great, get to work, or somebody who says, hey, how was your weekend? What's going on with the, dog that you just got? Like, how's training going? Yeah, here's some things we're working on today. I really appreciate what you did last week on our project, and really engage with you and make you feel welcome. So you think about that when you look for careers as well. So when you come and you talk to a career success coach, did y'all get to hear a little bit about coaching? Some of you had the pleasure of being in my perspectives class, and you heard a lot about coaching last semester. But it's really all about supporting what your goals are and where you want to go. As coaches, we're not here to tell you what to do. We can supply you with some resources. We can share some experiences when we ask permission, right? We say, would it be okay for me to tell you a little bit about my experiences in life? So to go back to that for a minute, when I left the military, I have jumped all over the place. I'll say stepping blocks because we have stepping blocks as an application that you can access on our website, and it tells you the little steps and the little lily pads that people are on as they navigated to whatever career field they're in at that present time. And I've really done that, right? Because I have a German degree and I have an organizational leadership degree. And organizational leadership can be used anywhere. And I would actually argue that a German degree can be used anywhere. Every community I've ever been to, deployed, including deployments, with the exception of being in Kyrgyzstan and Afghanistan, I have found someone who speaks German. Now, I guess in Afghanistan, I had soldiers that I worked with that spoke German. So I've been able to utilize it, but I also see its applicability to learn about how people solve problems differently based on language acquisition. You know, if you're a Latin-derived language, you might think about emotions in solving a problem. German tends to be more like we don't have a lot of different words that describe emotions. We just kind of get to the point, want to solve the problem, move on. More technical. And if you look at career fields, you'll see that too in language. So when I got out of the military, I went to Alaska. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I spent some time trying to be a stay-at-home mom. Realized that that's amazing, and there are people that do that rather well, but that was not my skill set. And so I went and I worked as an enrollment marketing coordinator for the Citadel, or not Citadel. I'm thinking of television shows right now. No, Citadel in South Carolina. So when I worked as a marketing enrollment coordinator, that obviously I had no experience in marketing, right? Where had I done enrollment? But I had applicable skills that I had used in the military. Like I had obviously put an event together and marketed it and said, hey, I want all the families to show up and we're going to have an organizational day, bring the kids. There's going to be, pumpkins to carve, face painting, crafts to do. And we were trying to get families together and build camaraderie in our military units. So I had ways to take skills that I had learned in different things and make it fit to that position. After I left there, I worked for a veteran service organization for a little bit that was looking at blue collar, labor type skills and workforce development. And that was a remote position, and it's just kind of marketing programs they had. So I was in marketing again. No German to be used in either of those things. And then I left there and I went and I worked at the girls' school where my girls went to school, because then we could all go in and come home together. I was a first grade German teacher. That was exciting. Students didn't know German, so it's a lot of patience. Worked as a reading specialist, helping kids in a K-8 program learn and develop reading skills, and worked with English as a second language students. So that way I did understand what it was like to learn a foreign language, right, and relate to students. We left. I established a pet services business in El Paso, Texas, because my girls had the honor and privilege of going to a school run by the German government. And German school is different than American school. You're not in school 8 to 5 or 8 to 3 or 9 to 4. I had 2 kids that went in at like 9:30. We're done by noon. Another child that would go in at 7:30, and her longest day was 2:30. But it was like a college layout. They didn't have the same classes every day, and that was a 2nd grade through 8th grade level at that time. They had different times that they had to be at the school. So I had to be mobile to do pickups and drop-offs and all as a military spouse at the time. So I was like, how can I get paid for this walking that I had started to do? And I decided to form a pet services business. So I started with Rover to gather clients. And I was like, you know what I'm using right now? What degree was I using? What do you think? What were my degrees again? Say it again. Organizational leadership. Yeah, because I was in the business school and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm running a business now. And it was pretty good. It was lucrative. We got a trip to Germany out of everything that I earned from that. I took my girls over there so they could experience Germany, use their German, see the culture, because we've never gotten to live there, but we're all fluent speakers. And then I came here and I worked for a veteran organization helping veterans transition out of the military service and into new career fields, which is very similar to college students transitioning, which is also very similar to one day when y'all get ready to retire and you've done a job for a long period of time and you're like, I'm ready to be done with it, but it's also scary because I don't know what's next, but it's also exciting. Scary and exciting are both words of anxiety. Like, how do we navigate that? So then after that, I worked at Chick-fil-A for a couple of months because that was on my dream sheet. Check that off. And then I came here. And so, as you can tell, anything that you decide to do is only for now. So I told my high schooler not long ago the quote that I came up with. I hope nobody else has come up with this yet because I need to coin it. But the great part of the impermanence of life is that everything you do is just for now. So you're a student for now. Y'all don't plan to be a student forever, I'd imagine. You probably love learning, so you're probably going to be a lifelong learner, which is great because that shows a growth mindset, and you'll continue to grow and develop over time and have lots of opportunity. But you're only going to be a student for now. And when you go into your first career field, it may or may not be exactly what you're looking for, or you may think it's what you're wanting to do and then get in the seat and realize, I want to do something else. And so part of what we do at Career Success, coaching, is to support that process. And so help you navigate it. And we talked about some of the emotions, right? What grade, like freshman, sophomore, junior, senior?
It's mostly sophomores and juniors.
Okay. So you should be starting to think about internships. Are y'all thinking about internships? I know y'all have been talked to about Handshake. So everybody's been on Handshake and you're looking for it. And what kind of majors what have y'all declared as your major?
What's your major, Ian? Finance.
Finance.
Who else is finance? Anybody marketing?
Okay.
Management? Any computer people?
All of those are very malleable skill sets. Did you have one too? Business administration. Okay. So they're all malleable. Like if you think about it, finance, money exists in every company. Things always have to be managed. Everything needs marketing. So you have the flexibility to go into a plethora of things in the industry. And it may not always be like, are y'all thinking job titles when you think about what you want to do in the future? Or how are you thinking about your future? They're like, I want to get through the semester. I like to pass all my classes. When is this lady going to be done speaking? All of that, right? Well, for those of you that were in my perspectives class, what are some of the things that we talked about?
Were you in her class, Ian?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we're putting you on the spot.
He's good at it though, because there was one day he came and he's like, I'm just here. And then he's like, I'm really glad I was here today. What resonated with you maybe? Yeah. So you talked about networking and putting yourself out there. But there are some steps that we do and that you can do with even a coach if you didn't do perspectives class yet about how you put yourself out there, right? So who knows like what they are supposed to do in life? Like your calling, what your gift is. There's a little secret.
Mr. Boston knows.
Okay, you do. What is your calling? Okay. So it sounds like ministry partnered with a 501c3, a nonprofit organization. And in our class, we actually, when we were talking about discovering your passion, like what gives you energy, what jumps you out of the bed. I'm not going to say it happens every day, but there are things that you're like, whoa, that was amazing. I can't wait to jump out of bed and do that tomorrow again. We talked about a thing called vocational discernment. And if you really look up what is like a vocation, it's always religious based, right? I'm looking for a video that's going to not be religious based that I can share with my asynchronous class this time. Because a vocation, when you think about vocation, it's really a calling that you have. And for me, and when I was talking to students about discovering your passion, think about it. Do you enjoy working with people, things, or data? And I totally stole this from the book, What Color is Your Parachute? So the leadership book. And you probably know, like if you can spend over half of your day talking to people and still like want to get up the next day and go to work, then you probably enjoy people. Now, if you've talked half your day, like today I have 2 presentations and a meeting, that's a lot of engagement for an introvert. I may not look like an introvert, but I am. So this evening is going to be quiet time at my house, hopefully with dogs like snuggling, But the purpose of it is, right, I do really enjoy working with people. When I put my tell me about yourself question together, we talk to my students about what is their purpose. And my purpose is something with people. I want to have an impact on people. So you and I are in the same industry. We want to impact people in a positive way. And what I have learned, over time, this is the gift of not being 20 anymore and growing a little bit beyond that, is that there's a plethora of ways to positively impact people. Finance people can do it all the time. They can help educate people on updates to, codes in the IRS, for example, inform businesses on, spending, maybe the way they're spending, how they could cut spending, how they could maximize where their dollars are going and that sort of thing. So that might get into data a little bit, right? If you like, most people are hands-on learners, honestly. And you really learn something once you're able to teach it to others. There's a whole quote on that. I forget who it's by, but it's out there. But when you work with things, the majority of the day, you might be somebody who enjoys problem solving, having your hands on things, kind of tinkering with things. So if you find that you're continually like trying to fix problems, you may really enjoy working with things, for example. So sometimes that's a good way to start. And in our class, we talked about what is your purpose, what is your passion. So you think about things that give you energy, that make you get out of bed. You can think in your personal life, you can think at work, you can think in the classroom. Was it an experiment that you did in a lab? Was it coming together with other teammates and realizing, like I had this experience in grad school here, 2 other friends, we get together, group assignment, and it's like, hey, I hate writing papers. I'm like, hey, I can write. I love data. I'm like, great, you're doing research. And like within 10 minutes, we already had it dissected out who was going to be responsible for what in this group. And that group project went so smoothly that when we got together on things, we just enjoyed the time with one another. And then our presentation was great and life was good. And that's when you learn, like, hey, it's great to have diversity of skill set on a team. We don't want to all be alike because then we all hate the same work. But if we have diversity, like we have over at Career Success Coaching, then you have people that are good at different things and enjoy different things, and it makes the work easier. So we talked about, things that are passion producing. So tell me about yourself question, which is on our interview podcast. Did y'all get introduced to that resource?
Yes.
Awesome. I enjoy working with people and organizations. to help them obtain their goals, set new goals, and continue to achieve. And you can see that, like, my statement is very broad. So I could work anywhere. That's the intention, right? So you don't have to have this like one niche thing, like I'm a great singer, because I'm not, but I do like karaoke. But you can have a broader thing that can apply many different places. But it's like for us as human beings, right? Who likes comfort and who likes challenge? If you like comfort, raise your hand. Okay. If you like to be challenged, raise your hand. Okay. So you would probably say, hey, I'm pretty comfortable with change. But really reflect on that for a minute. Those that like challenge. When change is happening, I know you have emotions with it. And it's a trying time. But maybe you're just a little bit more brave, right? People who like change experience a lot of growth. But most of us as human beings, even if we say we like change, we like comfort. Like those of you that like change, do you have a pretty well-established routine? Or is every day just like throw it on the wall and see what works? Honestly. I guarantee you have some kind of routine. Like you got to get up a certain time, you got to be at the house at a certain time. So you do have some things that provide structure and comfort at the same time. But we have to be able to go and navigate both of those things. And with a career success coach, and in the business world, you'll have executive coaches and all. They're supporting that process. Like they're saying, okay, what is the worst thing that's going to happen if you do X, Y, or Z? That's like the best coaching question, because people are usually, you're right. Like the worst thing that's going to happen is they're going to tell me no. Let's go back to high school. Asking somebody to homecoming. I don't know if they're going to say yes. Today, it's like really weird because I have high schoolers and y'all just left high school. So a lot of times people don't ask people anymore to homecoming. Have y'all had that experience? No? Okay. Or they do like fancy signs, but they want to know for sure they're going to get a yes before they do it. Okay, some of y'all can relate. That's good. But at the end of the day, it's like, okay, just ask your kid, like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen if for Sadie's you're asking the guy, or the girls are asking, or the guys are asking the girls for homecoming? Like, the worst thing that's going to happen is no. And you go, that's fine. I'm going to go ask somebody else, right? The worst thing that's going to happen when you interview for that job is what? No. But interviewing helped you do what? Experience, network, prototype and try out what you're doing. You may make a connection that's going to get you somewhere else down the line. Like sharing what your purpose and what your goals and ambition are with as many people as possible. You never know who's going to come along that's like, oh my gosh, I know what you need, and I'm going to connect you to this person. So did you get told that we have a career success coach? His name's Reggie Gooden. Did you get told about Reggie Gooden?
No.
Okay. Well, Reggie Gooden is a military veteran like me. And we both worked at the same nonprofit with veterans before we came here. And he is a pastor in his other, he's a pastor in his other, time that he's outside the university. And he had a calling for that. And he and his spouse run several nonprofits or organizations, LLCs, and she's very creative. And so there's a lot of overlap there that you can have. And so I would definitely point you to talk to him, and he would be more than happy to talk to you. Y'all would have a lot in common. All right, so what's on your mind about careers, internships? I know y'all are like focused on school. Y'all are like, we're not thinking about this. We got a year or two ahead of us. Are y'all nervous about when you graduate, what it's going to be like? Who knows exactly what they're going to be doing? They've got like the comfort life sketch. They're ready to go. They know exactly what they can do. Yeah. Do y'all know if y'all want to stay in Columbus or Pop Smoke? You're leaving on the fastest
That's
train
pretty
out
sure
of here.
about that. We might not know what we're doing, but we know we're leaving.
Yes. Well, I mean, I knew that when I left home for college. I was like 9.5 hours. Bye.
Mm-hmm.
I did not look in that rearview mirror. I was so happy to get out of my town and away from my family and everything I knew, and go to college where I had looked, because my high school would publish, who went to what college. And I was like, nobody's going to this school. And the last person that went to the school was 4 years ahead of me. So they're going to be a senior and they're going to be graduating, and they don't know me. And it was a fresh start after 13 years of being in school with the same people. Okay, well, that's great. Y'all are primed to talk to me then. If you have no idea what you want to do, where you want to go, and even if you just know, I'm getting out of Columbus, I've obviously done that too and moved around a lot. So
now you guys have met in person, at least 3 coaches. We've learned about a 4th in Reggie. And I love that the Career Center gives you the option of scheduling interviews, with the person that you feel most connected to or you think may help you. So it's wonderful that you've gotten to hear in person from all these folks. Any other questions for Kate?
any personal questions? Any humor today? I left with a joke from Nexus, so I'll try it. Do y'all know who Yogi Bear is? He steals the picnic baskets. Do you know why they didn't make 2 Yogi Bears? Because they made a boo-boo. Hey, boo-boo. It worked. It worked. It's good. I like to leave on a positive, right? And I want y'all to know, like, y'all can come in, and it's very easy to talk to. Very approachable. We can go wherever you want to go. Figure it out. Marketing folks, good luck, because those were fun jobs that I had doing and we have to do marketing, from the center, because y'all know when the career fair is, right? When is it? 17th of best month of the year, because I was born in February, right? Where's it at? Yes. And what time do you need to be there? Between 11 and 2. You can come whenever you want, right? Do you have to be looking for a job or an internship? Nope. Do you need to be dressed up? He's going to tell you yes. What did I tell y'all? Nope. Come as you are. Wear whatever you want. Yes, it's your first impression, but you're a college student. Talking to employers. The employers are just trying to get to know you a little bit. You can start that relationship. If you want to establish it from day one, looking like you're, a seasoned business professional, then that's fine. That's your prerogative. You can do that. And we have a career closet. Y'all know about that? Come get clothes for free. I can teach you how to tie a tie. Apparently, I'm the only one so far, but we do have gentlemen on staff. Maybe they're just not around when that happens. I thank my brother for that experience. So, okay. All right. So who's coming to the career fair?
Everybody.
Everybody. Lottie-dottie, everybody is what they'd say in the military. You don't have to be all prepared. You don't have to have a resume. Just come through. Look at the companies. What are the company's values? What are the people like? What's the impression you get from them? What companies might you be interested in? And there are companies from outside of Columbus that come and have, opportunities and all. I've got everything from the Secret Service coming to obviously AFLAC. Y'all have heard about the AFLAC opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are not a freshman rising sophomore and in that little thing, I still want you to come over to the center on February 5th. It's a great opportunity to network. You never know what may happen. People make exceptions all the time for the right thing. That's and my goal, when I prepare you for things, right, is that when you go and you interview for a job, the people that are sitting in that panel or your interviewer says, I can't open the doors of this company tomorrow without the person working for me. What do I need to do to make this happen? That's my goal when you go to interview. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kate. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. I hope that everyone will take advantage of all that you have to offer. All right, gang. We are now going to jump back into legal studies. And the unit for this week is going to be court systems. And this is more of a broad foundational unit, kind of like Unit 1 Sources of Law was. So the stuff we talk about in this unit is we're going to build on for the rest of the semester. Because I wasn't able to be here Tuesday, I've combined kind of 2 units into one. So Unit 3 is going to be today and next week. So Unit 3 will be 3 class periods. You will have 1 quiz, but it will not be due until the Monday after we finish. So you don't have a quiz due this coming Monday. All right, everybody good with that? No quiz due this coming Monday. The quiz the following Monday will be over today's class and next week's classes. I'm going to lecture most of today. I got a little bit of catching up to do since that took a little longer than I thought, but it was good. Before I move on, any questions on last week, the assignment, anything having to do with career prep? All right, you guys are off and running on that. I feel like we've given you everything you need to know on that. You've got between now and April 10th to complete that assignment. Please don't wait till the end. Go ahead and make your appointments and start getting to know those coaches. All right, pull up, if you will, from Cougar View, the attachment that says Georgia Courts. I think it says Georgia Courts. Do y'all see that? You see that, Bo? Is that what it's titled? Okay, Georgia Courts. Corbin's pulling up his computer. I'll give y'all a second. While he's doing that, court systems. Each state in the country has their own court system. All right, that makes sense to us. Georgia has a court system. Alabama has their own court system. South Carolina has their own court system. And those court systems deal with violations of those state laws or disputes having to do with those state laws. Okay? If I hunt a deer out of season and I get charged with a crime for that, that's gonna be in the Georgia court system. I broke a Georgia law. We also have a federal court system. Remember, again, federal meaning referring to the United States government. So the United States of America has its own court system as well, primarily for questions or issues or violations of federal laws. Okay? I don't file my taxes to the IRS on time. They charge me with a crime of tax evasion or whatever. That's going to be in the federal court system. The case involves a federal law. So we've got one overarching federal court system, and then we have 50 individual state court systems. There is some overlap between them. It is possible for a case to be brought in either federal court or state court. And it's possible for a case that starts in one of those systems to then jump over to the other. I'm not testing you on when that happens and why that happens, but I do want you to know that there is some overlap between them. They're not exclusive. There are some cases that can only be brought in state courts, some that can only be brought in federal courts, and some that could be brought in either. You don't need to know the difference. You just need to know that that exists. We talked a little bit in Unit 1 about the difference between a trial court and an appellate court. Trial courts are the courts that you begin, that's your entry-level court in any court system. That's where evidence is taken, witnesses testify, pictures are introduced as evidence, objections are made, opening and closing arguments are made, juries exist. Verdicts are given. Sentences are handed down. Trial courts are where the evidence is established, the facts of the case are established, and then the judge or the jury applies the law to the facts as they find them. An appellate court, on the other hand, does not deal with any factual issues. The appellate court, that is the court that has the appeal, only deals with whether or not the law was applied correctly or incorrectly at the trial court level. So in the Brown case we talked about in Unit 1, the facts at the trial court level, we had to have witnesses testify that they tried to enroll their students in the white schools, that they were denied. They may have introduced a letter saying they were denied. We need to have witnesses say what happened. All right, all that was the facts. The legal issue was whether or not that violated the Constitution. So at the trial court level, they decided what happened factually. Then the judge or the jury applied the law to the facts. The trial court decided that segregation did not violate the Constitution. On appeal, the question was not anything having to do with the facts of the case. The question was solely about the legal conclusions that were made at the trial court level. So, if you look at the Georgia state court system, you will see that the trial courts, the entry-level courts, the point of entry into the state court system are those courts that you see along the bottom two rows. If we don't like what happened at the trial of our case in any of those bottom courts, we can appeal, and the next level up is the Georgia Court of Appeals. Y'all see that? If we don't like what happened at the Georgia Court of Appeals, we can appeal up again to the Georgia Supreme Court. That's as far as we can go in Georgia. One of the reasons that the state court system overlaps with the federal court system is that some cases could then be appealed from the Georgia Supreme Court into the federal court system and end up at the U.S. Supreme Court. That's how some of the overlap works. So we have these trial courts that you see at the bottom. We have an intermediate level of appellate court, and then we have a higher level of appellate court. Pull up for a second the federal court system. Much more streamlined. Your entry-level trial courts in the federal court system are called district courts. You start there. That's where you have your trial. That's where witnesses testify. That's where facts are established. You get a ruling. If you want to appeal from that, you then go up to the U.S. District Court. If you don't like what happened at the U.S. District Court, then you could appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court. The U.S. Supreme Court, as we talked about in the Brown case, they don't have to take every case that comes to them. The intermediate appellate courts do. You have an automatic right to appeal from the trial court up to the next level, but you don't have an automatic right to take it to the highest level. The country in the federal court system is divided into circuits, different areas, right? So, for example, Georgia is in the 11th Circuit with Alabama and Florida. So any appeals from district courts in Georgia, Alabama, or Florida are going to go to the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. From the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, you then go to the U.S. Supreme Court. So the country's divided into different areas. Sometimes these circuit courts of appeal will come to different conclusions. And that's one of the reasons that you'll see the U.S. Supreme Court take a case. Well, we had the 11th Circuit found this, but we had the circuit, I think it's the 5th Circuit, which includes Texas, came up with this decision. We need to resolve that difference between these two appellate courts. Supreme Court might also take a case that has great national importance or something that is a really, really hot topic, important topic, like the Brown case. Remember when the court said in that case, we're taking this case because the idea of segregation and equal protection is of such importance that we feel like the Supreme Court needs to speak on. So the federal court system is divided up into trial courts that are called district courts, courts of appeal that are organized by circuit, and then the U.S. Supreme Court sits at the top of that pyramid. That's how those work. Pull up again, if you will, go back to the state court system for a second. The next idea I want to talk about is jurisdiction. Jurisdiction is the power of a court to hear a case. If the court doesn't have the power to hear a case, then any decision that they make has no impact. It's not binding on anybody. Right? Two ways you can have jurisdiction. A court has to have jurisdiction over the people, the parties in front of it. Personal jurisdiction, jurisdiction over the person. Or the court has to have jurisdiction over the subject matter. So in order to issue a binding decision, the court has just jurisdiction over the people before it and also the subject matter. Let's think about subject matter for a minute. Look at the Georgia court system. On those 7 trial courts down below, those 7 entry-level courts, you'll notice that they're organized by subject matter. Each court has jurisdiction over different subjects. All right? Juvenile court has jurisdiction over crimes committed by minors, people under 18, and they have jurisdiction over the subject of children that need to be removed from their families because of mistreatment or neglect. If my 16-year-old daughter robs a liquor store and she's charged with a crime, she's not going to get charged with that crime in probate court or recorder's court. She's going to get charged with that crime in juvenile court because juvenile court is the one that has subject matter jurisdiction over crimes committed by minors. All right? So we've got to fit into the court that has subject matter jurisdiction. Probate court, you'll see, has subject matter jurisdiction over things like wills, estates, guardianships, things like that. That's probate court. Recorder's court, and just so you know, I'm not testing you on this, which courts have which subject matter jurisdiction. I want you to understand the idea of subject matter jurisdiction and that certain courts have jurisdiction over certain subjects, but I'm not testing you on which is which. But I do want to explain the Georgia court system because I think it illustrates the idea. So recorder's court, that is where you would go if you were arrested to see a judge about making bond. I got arrested last night for a DUI, spent the night in jail. The next morning, I would go see the judge in recorder's court to get a bond, see if I can get out on bond. Municipal court is for violations of city laws. I have too many chickens in my yard. My dog was off the leash. Violations of city laws, that subject matter jurisdiction lies in municipal court. Magistrate court has a much broader scope. It's not really limited in subject matter, but it is limited in the amount in controversy. So magistrate court is what you'd be familiar with, small claims court. Okay, the refrigerator repairman came to my house and I think they screwed my refrigerator up. I can sue them in magistrate court as long as my amount in controversy is less than $15,000. The benefit of magistrate court is it goes faster, there's less hassle, I can get my case resolved sooner. State court and superior court, which you see on that next to last line, those are courts of pretty general jurisdiction. They handle criminal stuff, they handle civil stuff, they handle divorces, they handle adoptions. They pretty much handle anything that isn't exclusive to the other courts. If it doesn't have to be in probate court or juvenile court or municipal court, it can be in state and superior court. That's where most of the lawsuits happen. Now, every state is going to look different, okay? Alabama's state court system is not going to look the same as Georgia's. Its structure is going to be the same. There are going to be lots of entry-level trial courts that are organized by subject matter. And then you're going to be able to appeal just like you can in Georgia, but the names might be different. It's confusing because, like, if anybody watches Law and Order, when they're arguing in the courtroom, that's a trial court setting, but New York calls its trial court Supreme Court, which is so confusing, right? Because we think of Supreme Court being the highest. In Georgia, we'd call that Superior Court. So the names are not going to match up, but the structure is going to be roughly equivalent. All right, that's subject matter jurisdiction. Personal jurisdiction, jurisdiction over the parties, means that we have a fundamental right to be sued or to have our court case brought where we live. Okay? I can't be sued in Alaska unless that lawsuit has to do with something I did in Alaska. The general basic principle is that people are only subject to jurisdiction of the state where they live. In other words, Alaska's not the boss of me. I don't live there. Georgia's the boss of me. I live here. But if I do something wrong in Alaska, I commit a crime in Alaska, if I do business in Alaska, and they want to sue me in Alaska based on what I did there, then I might be subject to personal jurisdiction in another state. When residents of one state are sued in another state, that's called long-arm jurisdiction. Think about the long arm of one state reaching out and grabbing jurisdiction of a resident of another state. There are rules about when that can happen. Long-arm jurisdiction is appropriate when a person from another state committed a crime in that state, committed a wrong act in that state that they're getting sued for, does business in that state, and the business relates to what they're getting sued for. So if I'm ever sued in a court other than Georgia, I live in Georgia, if I'm ever sued in another state, I could raise the defense when I get in court of, you don't have jurisdiction over me. I don't live here. Then it would be up to that state to show the court why they should have long-arm jurisdiction over me based on something I did there, crime I committed there, business I did there, something like that. That's the idea of long-arm jurisdiction. Long-arm jurisdiction was not much of a thing when our country was born, right? We rode horses. We walked places. We didn't get on airplanes and travel from state to state. We didn't do business with folks in other states. The idea that I can't be sued in any state other than Georgia that made a lot of sense. Okay? I don't have anything to do with other states. I don't even go there. But over time, society became mobile. Business became borderless. And it made more sense that non-residents could be sued in other states based on things that they did there. That idea doesn't offend the idea or the notions of fairness in a way that it did back then. Let's say we're still in the horse and buggy days, original 13 states or whatever we were. I can't be sued in Delaware if I've never been there and I don't do anything in Delaware. It's going to take me 4 weeks to even get to Delaware on my horse, right? Know anybody up there. Nowadays, if I'm doing business in Delaware and I'm getting sued over my business dealings there, I can get on a plane to Delaware. It's not as unfair or burdensome as it would have been back in the day. So there are two things going on. One is the idea that we don't want courts to ever have power that exceeds what it should be. And we don't want people to be subject to things that are not fair when it comes to them having to go defend themselves or be subject to a lawsuit in another state. We want jurisdictional boundaries to make sense and be respected unless there's a good reason for them not to be. Pull up for a second, if you will. I think it's labeled for discussion 129 for class. Is that what it's called? Okay, pull that up and take a couple minutes to read that. It's a very short fact pattern. And then y'all look up at me when you're done so I'll know who's still reading. Anybody need more time? All good? Okay. From here over, you guys are the lawyers for Emma. From here over, you guys are the lawyers for Peach. Okay? The facts are laid out as they are. Emma sues Peach in a Georgia court. Peach shows up and says, "You don't have jurisdiction over me. I don't live here." We're going to argue that case in a second. But before we get to the argument part, what are the facts that are good for your case, Emma's lawyers? Not the arguments. What are the facts that are good for you? What's a good fact? Hold on. That's Peach. Let me do Emma first. What's a good fact for you? How did Emma get that computer? They mailed it to her in Georgia, right? They sent it to her. Peach has a website. That's a good fact for you. Why? It's accessible to what? Anybody on the internet, people in Georgia, right? That's a good fact for you. Did Peach make money off of her purchase? So they benefited from having a customer in Georgia. What else? Good, Corbin. They provided customer service, and they didn't just ship the computer to Georgia. They reached out and continued communicating with their Georgia customer. That is an important fact. What else? Does it matter the amount? All right, that's a great point because we can argue both sides of that. So what is the fact on the revenue? 3%, right? The argument, well, we'll get to that in a second, but Bo, that's a very good fact. There's one more. When the laptop blew up, where'd that happen? In Georgia. Happened here. The injury happened here. Things went wrong here. Any good facts for you guys, Peach? Okay, you didn't specifically target Georgia residents. What else? Louder, Griffin. Refurbished laptops? How's that a good fact? They're hand-me-downs? Okay. What else? What other good facts? Say it louder, Ian. Only 3% of revenue, right? To Bo's point, we can argue both sides of that, can't we, right? But yeah, I mean, yes, we do business in the country, but only 3% in Georgia. Okay, that'd be a fact you would use. Do you have any locations in Georgia?
No, like a physical employee.
No physical, no one lives here. No businesses here, no brick and mortar here. Did y'all send out any targeted emails to people in Georgia? Did you specifically target any Georgia residents? All right, so those are facts that are good for both sides. Emma, how does your side argue the revenue point? Your point is you guys benefited. You made money from our citizens' business. Who cares if it's 3% or not? You still made money off Georgia residents. What do you guys say, Emma's lawyers, about the fact that they didn't target any Georgia people with their advertising? What's your response to that?
Well, the website's still available to everyone.
Good, Corbin. They didn't limit it. They didn't exclude Georgia people from their website. Anybody could go to their website. They sure didn't turn down any orders from somebody who went through their website in Georgia, did they? Right? What do you think your best argument is, Emma? Say again? But what's if Pete shows up and says it's not fair for you to sue us here? What's your best argument? Your laptop that you mailed to Georgia blew up in Georgia, right? I think that's your best argument. I don't care if you have business. I don't care if this was the only laptop you ever sold in Georgia. Let's say there was 0.0000001% of your revenue. You still sent a product in Georgia that injured a Georgia resident in Georgia. Peach, what do you guys say? What are some good arguments for you? On the revenue, Ian,
Revenue is
only
only 3%.
3%. We don't do much business in Georgia.
None of the advertisements were targeted to Georgia residents.
We didn't target any Georgia residents. Well, Corbin says, yeah, but Georgia people could get on the website. You have anything to say to that?
Georgia people aren't targeted on our website.
Georgia people aren't targeted on the website. I'm just posting information. Then they reached out to Florida to order it. I don't think that'd work, but that's what I'd argue. Hey, I didn't, and nobody asked her to buy a laptop from Florida. She decided she wanted a laptop. She called a Florida company to get it. Not my problem. Griffin. There could have been, yep. Hey, maybe the fault, maybe what went wrong didn't even have anything to do with, how about this? When it left Florida, it was fine, right? We didn't put a defective product in the stream of commerce to Georgia. Yes. Yeah, you guys would say, we didn't choose the UPS driver. You guys hired the UPS driver. He's an agent of yours, right? So the more that the lawsuit is related to something that happened in Georgia, the more likely that personal jurisdiction is going to be proper over a non-resident. So the relation of the lawsuit to the actions in Georgia matters. What also matters is the volume of contacts. Let's say for a second that Peach is owned by, Peach's owner lives in Jacksonville, Florida, has a beach house in Georgia, owns other businesses in Georgia that do have brick and mortar physical presences in Georgia. Peach's owner might not do much business on the computer sales in Georgia, but he makes millions of dollars on his other Georgia businesses. He's at the beach house 7 months of the year. Yes, his legal residence is Florida. That makes it more likely that he could be sued in Georgia for some other things as well that aren't necessarily related to his contacts. So the more general contacts you have with another state, the more likely you could be sued for something that isn't necessarily related to what you do there. It's harder to say it's unfair for me to be sued in Georgia when I spend most of the year there. Most everything I do is in Georgia, right? So we've got the idea of courts should respect boundaries. We don't want courts to overreach their boundaries, but we also want this idea of fairness to come into play as well. What if Emma bought the computer from Peach while she was on spring break? And she bought the computer she was in Panama City on spring break. She bought the computer in Florida, took it back home with her to Georgia. It blows up. How's that change your argument, Peach?
You didn't properly secure it when you were driving back and flying back and forth.
Well, in terms of contacts with Georgia. What did we do in Georgia? You guys could still say you still advertised. She went to your store because she found it online. Maybe she found it online when she was in Georgia and planned to go buy it while she was on spring break. Your case is better if she buys it in Florida, sure. Your case is weaker if she buys it in Florida. You guys still have an ace up your sleeve, which is your best argument is what? It blew up in Georgia. Things went south in Georgia. The injuries happened in our state. So somebody in an earlier class said, why wouldn't you just go to Florida and sue Peach there and not have to worry about the jurisdiction question? And that's a great question. Why might you rather sue Peach in Georgia than go to Florida? All right, louder, Boston. I'm old. I can't hear. Okay, so yeah. Would you rather argue in front of a jury in your hometown or in Peach's hometown? Your hometown. You're daggum right. If I'm your lawyer, if I'm Emma's lawyer, I want to be able to say to a jury, look what these Florida people did to our students. They sent a firebomb into the dorms of our youth. Of course, we should want to hold them responsible in our state for what they did here, right? If we're in Florida and I represent Peach, I want to be able to tell the jury, it's just another Georgia person coming down here trying to pick on a Florida business, right? She should know better. So definitely there's some considerations with where your home turf is. That's great. Also, let's say that the damage that the computer caused was like $1,000, right? And Emma goes to sue Peach in Panama City. No, let's say it's Miami. Emma's got to buy a plane ticket to Miami. Probably more than one, because most cases aren't going to get resolved in one thing. She's going to spend up that $1,000 just on travel, hotels, expenses. Why not make Peach be the one to have to incur all the expenses? So there are a lot of different considerations that go with that. Now let me be real clear. Emma could sue Peach in Florida, And we'd have no question about jurisdiction because that's where they live. They're getting sued in their home state. You can't raise an objection to that. The reason they raise an objection is because it wasn't where they live. And long-arm jurisdiction is what would enable a Georgia court to exercise jurisdiction over a non-resident based on the contacts that they have with Georgia, the subject matter of the suit, and how interrelated those things are. If I go through the airport in Utah and I have a 10-minute layover and I shoot somebody in the Utah airport, okay, and they charge me with murder in Utah, and I show up and say, well, y'all have zero contacts with me. I've only been in Utah for 10 minutes out of my whole life. I didn't even leave the airport. I'd never spend the night there. I don't know anyone here, all that. I don't have any contacts with Utah. The state of Utah's argument would be what? Yeah, so what? You were only here 10 minutes. While you were here, you broke our law. That gives us jurisdiction over you. Now, if my wife wants to go sue me for divorce in Utah, and the only thing I ever did was commit murder while I was there on a layover, I would tell the Utah court, I don't really have, the extent of my contacts in Utah are a 10-minute layover. And that has nothing to do with my wife suing me for divorce out here. You can't exercise long-arm jurisdiction over me for something that is completely unrelated to the limited contacts that I even have. It's kind of a sliding scale. The more I do in Utah, the more likely it would be that they could exercise jurisdiction over me for unrelated things. Kind of like the Florida business owner who spent most of his time in Georgia. His wife wants to sue him for divorce in Georgia. She's got a better case. They own property in Georgia. Spend all their time in Georgia. Earn most of their money in Georgia. All right, any questions on jurisdiction or court systems? I did condense that somewhat because of Kate being here. And so there is stuff in your outline on court systems that I have not talked about. It's important that you still read through that. Yes?
Like, what if, like, Kate or the company was located close to the state line? Like, where would the jurisdiction be? They were really, like, let's say they were, like, from, like, Alabama to here, like, on the bridge, whatever, like, they were that close, where would the jurisdiction be?
No. So, great question. Let's say that there is a business located on the banks of the Chattahoochee. You could hit a golf ball from their thing into Georgia. Unless it involves something they did in Georgia, they still got to be sued in Alabama. What about y'all if I stood on the banks of the Chattahoochee River in Alabama and I shot somebody in Georgia? Then I have zero contacts with Georgia, right? Except for that I caused a bullet to come into the state and kill a resident. I could be sued in Georgia for shooting the gun into Georgia, even though I physically were never here. Same as Peach never physically set foot in Georgia to sell that computer, but they did business in Georgia. All right, I didn't take roll, and we're up against time, so let me just check that real fast. All right, Boston, got you. Ms. Bruner. Chima, got you. Mr. Green. Mr. Green is not here today. Miss Mezzaline, we did not see today. Miss Reed, we did not see today. I got everybody else. All right, I'll see y'all Tuesday. No quiz for this week. Yay. And Ms. Bruner, I'm going to take care of your quiz too. All right, see y'all next week.